Welcome back to our life. Beginnings and always. Charity. Cove pushed himself to his feet from where he had been bent down in the sand, stretching out his back and groaning softly. A tired breath slipped past his lips as he wiped his brow, looking out over the shore. It's great here. You stood beside him, joining in the surveying of the sand that almost seemed sparkle beneath the midday sun. The two of you had been out on the beach since sunrise, cleaning up and down the beach looking for various debris, and the work had paid off. Using a hand to shield your eyes from blinding rays, you glanced across the way where the other volunteers from Orca were gathered. They were easily recognizable by the high-vis vests they wore. It looked as though everyone was about ready to wrap things up for the day. I'm happy to see it in better state. I'm exhausted. I'm just glad it's over. You did great, Cove. I'm happy to see it in better state. It was pretty sad looking when we got here. The beaches of this town were practically your own personal backyard, and you visited them a lot. It felt good knowing that you were helping to take care of them. Too bad not everybody sees the joy in putting trash where it belongs. Oh well. Cove placed his hands on his hips, a pleased grin pulling at the corners of his mouth as he admired the work you'd both done. You had begun to realize during your time volunteering for the organization how seriously Cove took his service. It was easy to see that it was something important to him. You felt equally as invested and always gave it your best efforts. You enjoyed the work, but mostly wanted to have a good time. Miranda was right. You volunteered because it was a good reference. You didn't want to be there, but you didn't know how to turn it down. You felt equally as invested and always gave it your best efforts. That's the right thing to say. It was important that the ocean you grew up with was protected. It had always been a big part of your life, and you felt that the least you could do was give back to it in some way.
Jamie.
Hey, nice work, Jamie. Thanks. It's been a good year so far. It's crazy to think that it's already time to push the big event. You let out a big breath, thinking of the formal dinner the Orca organized every year. Being a completely fundraising-focused event for large donors, it was crucial for the organization projects in the year to come. You had to be over 18 to attend, so this was your first opportunity to actually see it in person. All you had heard about it so far was that it was a prim and proper occasion, with speeches and everything. You didn't know what else to expect from it, as you weren't a part of the group who planned the evening. Before the big night came around, the volunteers would have to sell the tickets for it, and that's where you'd be helping. I'm so excited to go. I'm nervous about the event. I don't even really want to go. I'm curious about the night. You shrugged. I'm so excited to go. You rocked back and forth on the balls of your feet as you thought of the glitz and glam of the evening. Cove nodded, but something about his smile seemed strained. I'm glad you are. I just don't feel excited about attending a super formal meal with proper etiquette and stuff, you know. He threw his arms out to the side, making a bit of a show at how ridiculous it seemed to him. I've got sand all over my room and only one nice shirt, and I go barefoot pretty much whenever I can. I'm gonna be so out of place. Right, I bet you'd rather stay out here. I don't want to have to worry about manners. You can make it work for one night. Doing something that fancy will make it fun. Yup, You'll definitely seem out of place there. Doing something that fancy will make it fun. How often do we get the chance to dress up nice or eat at an expensive meal? Cove chuckled and shook his head at you in amusement. A small beeping noise came from Cove's pant pocket, and he pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Huh? It's the organizers. They've sent a text to the group. Time to call it a day here. Alright, ready to head to our next activity? Cove tucked his cell away eagerly, turning to you. Let's head over and drop the trash bags off at the trucks. Then we can drive back and join the ticket team. We've got to be there pretty soon to relieve them. With a stretch of shore this long, the plan was to switch places with the other team who had been pushing the tickets for the fundraising dinner halfway through. It'd be a full day of work, but it was Orca's largest event of the year, and all hands were on deck to make sure it was a success. You raised your hand for a high five. You nudged your shoulder against Cove's. You started pushing Cove on the back to move forward. You ran off. You started to walk. You nudged your shoulder against Cove's. You raised your hand for a high five. Cove's palm slapped solidly against yours, and he smiled at you crookedly. You collected the trash bags spread along the way together, heading across the beach to hoist them into the trucks before heading off to the next job. Cove slipped his warm hand into yours, and you intertwined your fingers, strolling back to the car side by side. The drive back to your neighborhood and making your way to the shopping street was fairly quick, though Cove stressed a little about being late. Luckily, he was able to find a parking spot nice and close to where you needed to be. You jumped out of the car and quickly went towards where you knew the group would be. Finally reaching the stall that was set up to sell tickets, you stopped for a moment to catch your breath. That was quite the flurry of activity. It would be your job for the rest of the afternoon to help sell tickets for the fundraising dinner. And looking around the street, you saw that there were plenty of potential buyers out today. That would hopefully help to move the tickets along. The stall itself was simple, a portable table with a few plusty animals as decorations and a banner stuck across the front. There were two volunteers who were already packing up and getting ready to head off to the beach. They gave both of you a friendly smile as you arrived. Hey Cove, Jamie, how'd things go at the beach?
Not bad.
It was good. The place is looking great. We're lucky to get a 2-for-1 when it comes to you guys. Cove cleared his throat awkwardly from beside you, and you noticed his cheeks flushing pink. Here we go again. You laughed it off. That's right, that's us. You felt your own cheeks get hotter. Their teasing rubbed you the wrong way. You shrugged it off. You laughed it off. We're always happy to be of service. Well, we're happy to have you around. Cove seemed to relax a little more after that, giving the volunteers a small smile. Volunteers made room for you and Cove behind the table while they circled around the front of it. Thanks for coming in for a shift. We'd better make this quick so we can head off to the next place. Yeah, fine. We're ready for whatever is needed. One of the volunteers handed you a clipboard with all the details needed to sell tickets, while the other tossed a set of keys to Cove, which he caught with ease. Those are for the money box and supply kit. Make sure to keep them on you at all times. Aside from the handling the cash or the tickets, there's also a form on the clipboard for the guests to fill in their info. That way we know how many tickets we've sold and who will be attending the event. There's a small script beneath that if you get stuck for what to say. And that's about it. Pretty simple, huh?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. I think we've got this. Satisfied that you knew what you were doing, the volunteers said their goodbyes and started walking away, leaving you and Cove to manage the stall alone. The keys jingled in his hand as Cove waved them off before he stuffed them into his pocket of his pants for safekeeping. Bye, have fun. Once the volunteers were out of sight, Cove dropped down into a chair behind the counter with a sigh. We made it here just in time. It's cool we traded places with nothing happening. They might have been late getting to cleanup duty. He leaned back in his seat, getting fully comfortable in the space, and gave you a small smile. You stayed standing. With clipboard in hand, you thought it might make you more approachable to the people heading down the street. We got things under control. We've got things under control. Look at how well we did with the beach cleanup. I'm sure this will be a piece of cake. Cove grinned wider, his gaze pleased as he smiled at you. I like the way you think. Cove rummaged around the station a little, picking up a stuffed toy orca and holding it up in front of his face. You had to admit that it was pretty cute, with its big, bulging eyes and oversized flippers. Setting it back down on top of the table, Cove moved on to check out the rest of the stall, finding a cooler stashed beneath the table. When he pulled it out and opened the lid, you could see it was filled with half-melted ice cubes and about half a dozen bottles of water. Grabbing one of the plastic bottles, he unscrewed the cap and took a long drink. You watched the condensation running along the side and onto his fingers.
So?
Do you want one? Cove set his water on his side of the table before pulling out another, holding it out towards you. You accepted the water bottle. Thanks. After opening it up, you took a drink and let out a satisfied sigh. You hadn't realized how thirsty you had been, and it was always good to stay hydrated. The two of you got settled in easily, and you took the chance to look over the paperwork on the clipboard. Cove joined you, leaning over your shoulder to get a better look. Seems like pretty standard stuff, he muttered, and you nodded quietly. It had general info about the event and the work you needed to do at the stall, as well as the amount of tickets sold thus far and the number remaining. Cove tapped a finger on the counter as he read quietly over the notes, muttering a few things now and then that you didn't fully hear. He seemed content to be there, and you were sure that the afternoon would pass by quickly. When he glanced out towards the crowd and made a small sound, you followed his line of sight to see a potential supporter was on their way over to the booth. You psyched yourself up. You were feeling anxious. It was time to do customer service. You tried to relax for a bit. This is going to be quietly continued checking over the papers. You tried to relax for a bit. All in all, it was a pretty easy task, and you were sure that you and Cove were going to do great at it. You gave the customer an easygoing smile, casually flowing into a conversation with them. Time passed as the two of you manned the stall. As people approached, your sales pitch would either have them asking for a ticket or two, or heading off and mumbling maybe next time. All in all, you managed to sell a decent amount of tickets, and you could tell that Cove was happy with the outcome. As the afternoon drifted along, 6 p.m. arrived, time to pack everything up and head home for the evening. Your work with Orca was far from over, but right now there was only one thing left to focus on: attending the actual event. The days continued on in a normal flow, and before long, the night of the Orca fundraising dinner was upon you. It was early evening, and you were in your room getting ready as the minutes ticked closer and closer towards the time you needed to leave. You wanted some privacy, so you had locked yourself away on your own. Liz was helping you pick out an outfit. Cove was on speakerphone. Liz was helping you get ready while Cove was on speakerphone. You were currently in the midst of picking out an outfit, which Liz was helping you with, while Cove gave his input from the phone. Of course, Cove couldn't see any of the items you and Liz were choosing between, but he was trying to help all the same. The event had strict guidelines, and you wouldn't be let in unless you were dressed to code. That meant having to find a truly professional outfit, but one that you were also happy with. You were happy to have the chance to dress fancy. You wanted to be practical about it. You were happy about having to dress up. You were happy to have the chance to dress fancy. There were a couple of outfits that didn't get nearly as much use as you would have liked, and now was the time to show them off. You smiled as you picked your way through the items, your excitement shining bright.
That's fine.
You don't need to get too in your head thinking about the look, but you do need to hurry up and pick something. At this rate, you're gonna have a better time picking out your outfit than at the party itself. But whatever you go with, it'll be great. Oh, aren't you helpful, Liz? Don't push me, Liz. Thanks for talking it through with me, Cove. I never thought I'd see the day when Cove Holden would encourage me to wear something formal. You laughed a little. Thanks for talking it through with me, Cove. You smiled, even though you knew he couldn't see it. It was nice having him on the phone for the moral support. Taking a deep breath to refocus yourself, you looked over the options one last time. It was time to decide on an outfit and quick. Sorry for the disturbance in the background. They won't be quiet in the other room. Taking a deep breath to refocus yourself, you looked over the options one last time. It was time to decide on an outfit and quick. You chose a dress. You chose a button-down shirt and pants. You chose a blouse and pants. You chose a button-down shirt and skirt. You chose a blouse and skirt. You chose a dress. Liz nodded in approval, clapping her hands together, satisfied.
Good.
Finally, we're making some progress. That sounds like it'd be totally fine. I'm wearing just a shirt with buttons and slacks, personally. Standing in front of your mirror, you quietly assessed your outfit. You thought about adding an accessory or two. It needed a little something extra to finish it all off. Rummaging through the rest of your wardrobe, you picked out what you needed to complete your outfit. You couldn't leave the house without slipping on that. Holding your hand up to the light, you quietly admired the way it glinted. A pair of earrings. You hurried to put on a pair of earrings to match your outfit, aware that the time was running short. A necklace. Turning back to the mirror, you let Liz drape your best necklace around your neck and clasp it together at the back. An anklet. You had to quickly remove your shoes to slip on the anklet before stepping back into them again. A shawl, just in case it got cold during the evening. You need a shawl to drape over your shoulders. A bracelet. You slipped a bracelet around your wrist and made sure it was sitting there properly. And that was everything. And with that, you decided to apply makeup. Leaning up in front of the mirror again, you grabbed your makeup bag and applied what you needed. You chose a color to complement the rest of the look and swiped it over your eyelids, taking care to blend it well. Liz had always been the best at applying nail polish, and you knew she could help you get it done quickly. Mascara. With your lashes fanned out like that, your eyes really stood out. Eyeliner. You carefully applied the liner to give your eyes more definition and presence. Lip gloss. Popping the wand on the tube, you applied a glossy sheen to your lips and puckered them together. You applied your lipstick carefully, smoothing your lips together to make sure the color was even. And that was everything. You're really going all in, aren't you? Of course. Finally you were dressed. It had all come together. Okay, just gotta change my shirt and then I'll be at the car. See you in a minute. When you looked at Liz again, she had a goofy smile pulling at her lips. You look very nice, Jamie. Now you're talking like our moms. You stuck out your tongue and scrunched your nose. When did Liz get so matronly? Her eyebrows dipped at the statement and she smirked with arms folded. They did raise me. She had a point there. Liz wiped a pretend tear away with her finger, sniffling dramatically. Oh, precious Jamie, you're really all grown up. It happened in the blink of an eye, when I wasn't even looking. Now you're really starting to sound like our parents. She chuckled to herself, nudging you towards the door. All right, time to get downstairs. You're very official, though still kind of a baby. Boyfriend awaits. You carefully headed down the stairs and into the living room, where your moms were awaiting for your appearance. As you entered, they both stood from the couch and came over to you, smiling broadly. You look so wonderful, Jamie.
Nice.
And very mature, too. I know, right? They continued to coo and fuss over you until you managed to brush them off. Ma took Mom by the arm and held her close, the two of them admiring you proudly. You enjoyed the attention, thank you. You sighed dramatically. I already got this from Liz. You wonder why they were making such a big deal. I already got this from Liz. I don't need it from you too. You'll have to get used to it one day, Jamie. You're the baby of the family forever, after all. Ma came in to give you one last hug, and before you knew it, another pair of arms was wrapped around you, then a third. Both Mom and Liz giggled as they hugged you tight. We hope you have so much fun tonight.
Have fun.
We won't wait up for you. Stay out as long as you need. You're old enough now. With a last wave goodbye, you left your family and approached the front door. It was time. Stepping out into the night, you closed the door behind you gently and looked out across the street. Cove was standing there in the street. His eyes met yours immediately, as if he had been watching your house from the moment you would come out. He smiled bashfully. Hey, Jamie. Hey, I hope you're ready to do this. You took the chance to check over his outfit as he walked across the way to meet you. It was formal for sure, though it didn't feel overly posh. It made sense for him and was honestly a sight for sore eyes. He was always beautiful to you. With a growing smile, he stepped closer, his cheeks reddening all the way down to his neck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming with me and for dressing really nicely for this. Your outfit is just perfect. His gaze traveled downwards to take in your full form, and he leaned in only inches away from your face to whisper in your ear, his warm breath tickling your skin. I like the ankle bracelet. Your cheeks went hot, and you bit down on your lip to keep from smiling too much. I wore it for you. I thought you might appreciate it, and it is a special night. He smiled at you softly, the corners of his eyes crinkling, and as he brought his face even closer to the point where the tips of your noses were touching. You're always too nice to me. He raised a hand and lightly trailed his fingers down your side, his touch tingling your skin through the fabric of your dress. You started to wonder if it was a good idea after all. Cove acting like that was killing you, and you hadn't even started the trip to the dinner yet. It took a great amount of effort to focus your thoughts and react to his overall assessment to your look. Thank you. You felt shy over it. You look amazing tonight. Damn, Cove, you're so hot right now, you said flirtatiously. Cove hung his bright red face in embarrassment after that. He wrapped his arms around his torso bashfully, as if trying to protect himself and the outfit from further teasing. Come on, Jamie. You laughed at the reaction. Then he shook his head, glanced back towards the garage, and throwing a thumb over his shoulder, spoke.
Come on.
We should probably get going. Wouldn't want to be late to such a grown-up event, right? Yeah, let's go. You headed over to Cove's car together, hopping in and strapping on your seatbelts. You were on your way. The event was being held at a place you had never been to before. You brought up the location on your phone to help Cove navigate there. It took some time to find the right address, and once there you were met with the task of finding a parking spot. Though you were on time, it seemed like everyone else had already showed up and claimed the spaces. Eventually you found a suitable place before realizing that it required payment. Cove covered the amount, taking a ticket from the machine and leaving it on the dashboard of the car. Despite the small holdup, you managed to ultimately make it to the event to confirm you were on the guest list before being shown into the dining area. Cove whistled low as he looked around, taking in the extravagance of the room. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the entire place was decked out with beautiful oceanic displays. You were stunned yourself. It was extremely high class, even more so than you had already expected. It's so nice. This is the best looking event I've ever been to. It was so frilly for me. So overdone. Could be worse. You didn't comment. This is the best looking event I've ever been to. Your lips parted in a wondrous smile as you took in the decorations and the guests all dressed to the nines. Cove met your eyes with a similar look on his face. You got the impression that he felt the same way about it all. The sound of your names being called out echoed over the din in the room. When you looked around, you recognized a couple of the organization leaders looking your way. They approached you both in greeting, giving you a welcoming smile and a hello. Cove, Jamie, we're glad to see you could make it, especially after all the hard work you've done to help make this happen.
Of course.
Definitely. I wasn't gonna miss it. Hi. You say that as if we had a choice, you joke. I wouldn't miss it either. Hello, I'm thrilled to have made it. I wouldn't miss it either. This is our big night. Of course we had to see what we were working towards. Well, thank you for being a part of the team. You're our best power couple, that's for sure. You're always welcome to participate in more activities when they come up. Cove let out an awkward, breathy laugh and rubbed at the back of his neck. Good to know. Cove shrugged then, eyes darting around the place with an awkward look.
So,
I guess we should talk to more people. There isn't much else to do at an event like this. You found your way into groups of people who were standing around chatting while some light music played in the background. Servers with large silver trays were gliding between the guests offering drinks and canapes. Cove was clearly hesitant to actually approach the people, but was able to respond when various people greeted him first. You were enjoying talking to so many different people, both guests and members of the organization alike, and found yourself enjoying the company. The sound of a microphone crackling came from the podium at the other end of the room. Someone who you assumed must be the host for the evening was asking everyone to sit down in preparation for the meal and speeches. You and Cove looked for your table, finding it easily enough by the little name cards that were placed delicately beside the napkins. A few others joined you at the table, though they weren't anyone that you recognized. The host was still speaking as people were settling, starting off the speeches by giving a welcome to everyone attending. She went on to provide some more information about Orca, which you supposed was for the guests who weren't a part of the organization, and the purpose of the fundraiser tonight. Orca's goals, as they explained it, were to aid in the conservation and restoration of oceans and beaches. There were many people who had helped to make the group as successful as it was. When she read off a list of several volunteers who worked on making the event happen, Cove's name was one of the first to come up. His cheeks flushed with shy pride at that. Your name then came up a little further down the list. You were smiling from ear to ear at the mention. As she continued on to thank the large donors for the event, you checked over at Cove. He was still grinning happily to himself and tapping his fingers over the tops of his knees, pretty pleased to have been mentioned by name. You laughed quietly as a reaction. You rolled your eyes. You were excited for him. You could relate to that feeling. You tried to keep focused on the speech. You could relate to that feeling. It felt good to be acknowledged for all the work you had done leading up to this event. You likely had kept smiling without even realizing it. While the host continued speaking, multiple servers dressed in black were setting the first course of the menu in front of guests. One of the servers set down a plate in front of you, and you thanked them quietly before looking over the dish with interest. You recognized the dish as a simple Caesar salad. The host quickly wrapped up the end of her speech, thanking everyone once more before inviting you all to begin your meal. Anyone who had included a special dietary note when signing up for the event received a vegan or vegetarian version, and there were also small baskets of bread set around the table. You ate both the salad and bread. You just ate the salad. You just ate some of the bread. You didn't eat any of it. You ate both the salad and bread. Cove wolfed down his salad before munching into a breadstick, quickly devouring that as well. I hope the next part comes out soon and is bigger. You could hear him mumbling to himself as he reached over for another piece of bread. He glanced around the table, and you followed his line of sight with curiosity, noting that everyone else was still eating the salad. Stopping his hand mid-air, he quickly pulled back and rested it on his lap without taking another breadstick after all. It was clear that he was starting to feel unsure of himself, and he looked a little out of place here. He folded his arms and turned away from them to you. Hey, did you like the salad? It It was too small. I'm still pretty hungry. Yeah, me too. His gaze remained purposely tunneled on you, as if he was trying not to even think about the rest of the table might be doing. You gave Cove a pat on the hand. You made silly faces at the other guests while they weren't looking. You picked up a breadstick and gave it to Cove. It's okay. Oh, thank you. Cove spoke gently as he took the bread from your hand, looking choked up by your reassurance. He munched away on it happily, seeming much more at ease. It was much longer until the main course was arriving and various chicken, steak, and veggie dishes were being served throughout the room. An array of scents wafted through the room, making your mouth water. You had chosen the chicken, you had chosen the steak, you went with the vegan meal, you went with the vegetarian meal. You had chosen the steak. It was nice that you had been given the option of how you liked your steak cooked, and the meal on the plate in front of you seemed perfectly to your taste. Cove had gone for the steak, and once he started to dig in, he was completely absorbed by his meal. You're gonna choke if you keep inhaling your food like that. You kicked him under the table teasingly. You put a hand on his thigh under the table. You flicked something at him while he was off guard. You focused on your own food. You put a hand on his thigh under the table. You couldn't resist a little teasing while he was distracted. Your arm reached forward out of view of everyone else, hidden by the heavy tablecloth. You let your fingers lay to rest on the center of his nearest thigh. Cove stopped eating immediately, his elbows banging against the top of the table in shock, his face slowly turning red. The table next to him rattled from the impact. When it settled down, he spoke creakily, without moving to face you directly. Yes? Nothing. Is something the matter? His flustered frown deepened.
That's...
Jamie, you should probably... Cove's voice trailed off quietly, and you got the impression that he was about to ask you to stop, but he didn't really want you to. You kept your hand where it was for a little longer, giving his leg a gentle squeeze until he cleared his throat and leaned in closer to you. You probably, shouldn't keep doing that right now. Fine. It was a shame it had to end, but you were content with how long he had let you keep your hand where it was. When you returned your hand to your own lap, Cole let out a small sigh of relief and continued eating again, though at a slower pace as he was still distracted from the event. Dinner eventually ended and last of all was dessert. And last of all was dessert. Okay, that made sense now. A lemon sorbet that had been partially dyed blue. The mix of white with bold streaks of blue made the little scoop look like a ball of roaring ocean waves. The effect was very pretty, but the serving size was small. Perhaps it was the price to pay for artistry. You turned to Cove to find him pouting a little at the size of it. Digging into the dessert, it took him only a few bites to polish it off. Again, the other people around the table had barely even begun eating. An unimpressed air settled over him as he sat back in his chair, sipping at his water unhappily. You gave him an encouraging smile. He looked up at you sheepishly, embarrassed to have been caught sulking over such a thing. He fumbled for defense. It was just really good, that's all. And now it's gone. But I'm okay. With a slight grin, he shrugged to show that he was really fine. Would you like a bite of mine? You scooped up a spoonful of your sorbet and offered it to him, holding a hand beneath it to avoid any drips. His eyes widened as he eyed the dessert hungrily, surprised by the offer. Recovering quickly, he leaned forward over the table, lifting out of the chair as he ate the treat from your spoon. As he sat back, humming happily, with his mouth full, you couldn't help but smile at the sight. Cove swallowed the Fox Ocean and let out a satisfied sigh, even though it wasn't that much more. The simple fact that he had gotten more hit the spot.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. You're welcome. You were pleased to see he was perkier, and you went back to eating the rest of your dessert. Another person from Orca got up on stage to make a speech as everyone was nearing the end of their meal. They spoke mostly about the individual projects that the organization was working on and their plans for the near future, as well as encouraging anyone who was interested to consider volunteering. Cove bent forward over the table with his chin balanced on a hand, listening attentively to the words. As they came to the conclusion and everyone gave them a round of applause, Cove caught your eye and smiled. You wondered what would happen now. And then the lights dimmed. A couple of spotlights came on, projecting a water-light effect around the room. The guests gushed over the ambiance, and you looked around with wide eyes at the ripples on the walls. The DJ that had previously been playing some soft mood music in the background announced that the floor was open for dancing, slowly turning the volume up so it drifted through the space. When you glanced at Cove, his eyebrows had shot up, and he mumbled quietly,
Huh.
I didn't know there would be dancing. I guess it makes sense now that I think about it. He gave an awkward laugh as you both watched as people rose from their seats. It was clear now that many of the donors were couples. A small crowd had started to form on the dance floor, and the DJ played a romantic song to get everyone started off. Cove let his gaze float over the small sea of guests who were moving onto the floor. His hands twisted in his lap as his lips pulled into a tight line. And then with a breath and the lift of his hand, he turned to you.
Well,
Want to dance with me? Of course I do. Of course I do. His face lit up. You could tell even beneath the dim light. Accepting Cove's outstretched hand, you rose from your seats together and stepped out onto the floor. When you had found a spot for yourselves amongst the other guests, you turned and faced him, standing close. Cove gave you a small smile as you looked up at him. He seemed a little nervous. I don't know how to dance. Not for real. He admitted with a slight squeeze to your hand and a sheepish look. You gave him a reassuring grin and nudged a little closer to him, still. It's okay. I know. With a familiar face full of affection, he let go of you and raised his arms to slide both of his hands behind your neck. You wrapped your arms around him in response. Together, you gently swayed to the music, moving your feet in time to the delicate beat. It was nice, just being here like this, in each other's arms. You didn't have to worry about whether you knew the right steps or not. There was always a way to make it work between the two of you. Cove leaned his head in nearer to yours, his forehead so close to yours that they almost touched. His breath was warm as he let out a contented sigh, tickling your skin. You really do look so good tonight. You're such a beautiful woman. Thank you. You smiled widely, feeling your cheeks hotter at the compliment. Have you had a nice time? I hope you did. Yes, I have. I came here with you, so yeah, I was having a pretty bad time until right now. Well, I've had worse nights. His eyelids fluttered close as your lips met in a soft kiss, and when he pulled back, he smiled at you gently. His bright eyes stayed locked on yours, studying you with an unmistakable adoration. Thank you for staying. You're still here, just like you promised you would be. Your heart felt light as you continued to sway whilst holding your most beloved person. So glad to be able to share a moment like this with him. A lot has happened, huh? You nodded faintly. You weren't sure if he meant just today, this summer, or your entire time knowing each other. But it didn't really matter. It was true either way. Thinking back on the years that you and Cove had been neighbors, it was difficult to even try to reflect on it all at once.
I'm so glad.
I'm glad we ended up here. He gave you a soft look and you beamed, knowing that you could also mean many things, but from his tone, you were certain he didn't only mean here, at this event. It was more than that. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. So am I. I think we have to tell your dad thanks. You're amazing. You couldn't even speak. You chuckled happily at the two of you and the long adventures you'd been on. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. You loved him, fully and completely, you did. His smile widened and he pressed his body against yours, resting his head into the crook of your neck, stroking the back of your head with his fingers. You tightened your grip on him and let your head fall against his shoulder. As the night drifted on, you held each other tight, swaying to the music as if you were the only ones in the room. Cope was sweet the entire time, his warmth brushing against your skin as he whispered words of affection in your ear. He was extremely good at making you feel special. You couldn't have hidden your blissful smile, even if you wanted to. The party eventually started to wind down, and at last it came to an end. When the main lights turned on, you blinked against the brightness of them, making sure you still had Cove in your sights. One final speaker came up to the podium on the stage, thanking all the guests for coming and wishing everyone a good night. Giving the space one more look, you walked together with Cove out to the parking lot. The other guests were doing the same, so you got stuck in a bit of a crowd. Though Cope was so tall, you could always see him, and it was easy enough to not get separated. The parking lot itself was quite big, and even more noticeable now with fewer cars blocking the view. It took a little while to actually locate Cope's car across its expanse. Eventually you found it, and the two of you bundled inside the vehicle and buckled up. The trip home was quiet as you both silently reflected back on the experience. The event had been the biggest night of the year for Orca, and now it was all over, just like that. Outside your window, the surroundings soon became familiar, and you found yourself back in your neighborhood. Cove pulled the car into his driveway and put it in park before letting out a relieved breath. Home, sweet home. Yeah. After climbing out of the car, you walked slowly down the road to Cove coming over to stand beside you. You stopped in the middle of the street, right between your house and his, and turned to him, finding him in the process of opening his mouth to speak. Strangely, he clamped his lips together, as though he had suddenly thought better of it. You also stayed silent. That was quite a night. Good night, Cove. Thank you for taking me tonight. This is kind of awkward. That was quite a night. Cove let out a breathy laugh, nodding in agreement. Yeah, it was. You kissed him goodnight. Needing to be close again before the night ended, you pressed your lips against his in a gentle kiss. He smiled as you separated, running his fingers over the side of your face.
Night.
Night, Jamie. With a last wispy smile, he left towards his front door. Figuring you shouldn't linger in the street for much longer, you crossed the remainder of the road and did the same. When you reached your house, you pulled out your keys and stuck them in the door, trying your best to be silent about it. Opening the door a crack, you turned back and looked at Cove from over your shoulder. Your eyebrows lifted in surprise to see he was doing the same, holding his front door open, but waiting for you to go inside before he did. You shared an amused smile before you both stepped into your own houses, locking the door behind you. It was quite late, so everyone else was already asleep. As quiet as a mouse, you tiptoed up to your bedroom and changed out of your formal clothes into your pajamas. Now that you were finally home, you were exhausted. You brushed your teeth and got ready for bed in darkness, before crawling under the covers and letting out a heavy breath. It was still strange to think about how that was. The build-up to the event, had felt like so much. Now it was completely behind you. Your mind was busy with rapid yet muddled thoughts as you faded closer and closer to sleep. As unconsciousness creeped up on you, you felt more content. It was a big deal, but there would be more in the future. You could accept what it had been, and you could dream about what you'd get to experience next. And then you were taken away from dreams, right back into reality by a sound. Your eyebrows pinched together, fully unprepared to be a part of the waking world again. The day was over, and it had been an eventful one. But you heard another noise. It was a tapping. Your eyes flew open. The window. There was a tapping that came from your window. Cove Holden. You slowly forced yourself to get up. You went over to the guy to let the guy in. You rushed over to him. You tumbled out of bed, taking your blanket with you. You left it on the floor. When you scampered over to the window, you saw through the glass that Cove's eyebrows were raised, and you suddenly realized that in your rush you hadn't taken care to be quiet. He had probably heard you crash to the floor. But that wasn't the matter at hand. You flung open your window and faced him completely, with nothing separating the two of you any longer. You had not been surprised to find Cove awkwardly crouched on your window ledge. However, you were taken aback to see that he was a little overdressed. Cove hadn't changed out of his formal clothes. Okay. You also noticed that he was perched clumsily. You didn't know if it was because he was trying to keep his fancy clothes clean or if he felt weird about something. His body was too stiff and awkward. Cove smiled sheepishly. Hi, Jamie. Cove, how come you're dressed like that? It's nice to see you, Romeo. You moved aside and let him climb inside. He cautiously stepped down by stretching his legs over. Strangely, he didn't use his hands for support. It was clear to you now he was holding something. When he was safely on his feet, he briefly checked. I'm gonna have to quit. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to quit. Someone's